आदरणीय सभापति जी, एक दीर्घकालीन सेवा के बाद आज आप नई कार्य क्षेत्र की तरफ प्रयाण करेंगे, ऐसा मुझे पूरा भरोसा है, क्योंकि फिजिकली आपने अपने आप को काफी फिट रखा है। एक ऐसा परिवार जिसका करीब 100 साल का इतिहास सार्वजनिक जीवन का रहा, उनके नाना, उनके दादा कभी राष्ट्रीय पार्टी के अध्यक्ष रहे, कभी संविधान सभा में रहे। एक प्रकार से आप उस परिवार की पृष्ठभूमि से आते हैं जिनके पूर्वजों का सार्वजनिक जीवन में, विशेष करके कांग्रेस के जीवन के साथ और कभी खिलाफत मूवमेंट के साथ भी काफी कुछ सक्रियता रही। आपका अपना जीवन भी एक कैरियर डिप्लोमेट का रहा। अब कैरियर डिप्लोमेट क्या होता है वो तो मुझे प्रधानमंत्री बनने के बाद ही समझ आया, क्योंकि उनके हंसने का अर्थ क्या होता है, उनका हाथ मिलाने के तरीका का क्या हाथ होता है, वो तुरंत समझ नहीं आता है, क्योंकि उनकी ट्रेनिंग वही होती है। और लेकिन उस कौशल्य का उपयोग ये 10 साल जरूर यहाँ हुआ होगा आपको कि सबको संभालने में उस कौशल्य ने किस प्रकार से लाभ इस सदन को पहुंचाया होगा। आपके कार्यकाल का बहुत सारा हिस्सा वेस्ट एशिया से जुड़ा रहा है एज ए डिप्लोमेट। उसी दायरे में जिंदगी के बहुत वर्ष आपके गए, उसी माहौल में, उसी सोच में, उसी डिबेट में ऐसे लोगों के बीच में रहे। वहां से रिटायर होने के बाद भी ज़्यादातर काम वही रहा आपका, माइनॉरिटी कमीशन हो या अलीगढ़ यूनिवर्सिटी हो, तो एक दायरा आपका वही रहा। लेकिन ये 10 साल पूरी तरह एक अलग जिम्मा आपके सिर में आया और पूरी तरह एक एक पल संविधान के ही दायरे में चलाना, और आपने उसको बखूबी निभाने का भरपूर प्रयास किया। हो सकता है कुछ छटपटाहट रही होगी भीतर आपके अंदर भी, लेकिन आज के बाद शायद वो संकट आपको नहीं रहेगा, मुक्ति का आनंद भी रहेगा और अपने मूलभूत जो सोच रही होगी उसके अनुसार आपको कार्य करने का, सोचने का, बात बताने का अवसर भी मिलेगा। लेकिन आपके इस, मेरा परिचय ज़्यादा तो रहा नहीं, लेकिन जब भी मिलना हुआ काफ़ी कुछ आपसे जानने समझने को मिलता था। मेरी विदेश यात्रा से जाने से पहले, आने से के बाद आपसे जब बात करने का मौका मिलता था तो आपकी जो एक इंसाइट थी उसका मैं ज़रूर अनुभव करता था, और वो मुझे चीज़ों को जो दिखती है उसके सिवाय क्या हो सकती है इसको समझने का एक अवसर देती थी, और इसलिए मैं हृदय से आपका बहुत आभारी हूँ। मेरी तरफ से आपको हृदय से बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं हैं। राष्ट्र के उपराष्ट्रपति के रूप में आपकी सेवाओं के लिए दोनों सदन की तरफ से, देशवासियों की तरफ से भी आपके प्रति आभार का भाव है, और आपका कर्तृत्व, आपका ये अनुभव और इस पद के बाद की निवृत्ति अपने आप में एक लंबे अरसे तक समाज जीवन में उस बात को वजन रखती है। राष्ट्र के संविधान की मर्यादाओं के चलते हुए देश को मार्गदर्शन करने में आपका समय, शक्ति काम आएगा, ऐसी मेरी पूरी शुभकामनाएं हैं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Hardly a day goes by without us reading about cow vigilante attacks. Earlier, we've read about lynchings, we've read about beef bans. People who've refused to say Bharat Mata Ki Jai have been publicly told they should leave the country. There have been accusations of love jihad, ghar wapsi campaigns, and even killings of rationalists. How do you view all of this? Sitting in this house, how did you view all of this?
Breakdown of Indian values, breakdown of the ability of authorities at different levels in different places to be able to enforce what should be normal law enforcing work. And overall, the very fact that Indianness of any citizen is being questioned is a disturbing thought.
Why were Indian values breaking down suddenly?
Because we are a plural society which for centuries, not for 70 years, has lived in a certain ambience of acceptance.
And that ambience was suddenly changing?
It is under threat.
Today, as we speak, there are many who believe we're becoming an intolerant country. You've read about these articles in papers, you've seen these debates on television. Do you fear that yourself?
Yes, because I interact with fellow citizens, and there are a great many people from different walks of life who come and talk about it.
So you share the concern that intolerance is growing in India?
Yes, I spoke about it in my last speech in Bangalore a few days back.
You did indeed, and I want to quote from that in a moment's time. But have you ever shared your concerns, your apprehensions with the Prime Minister or with the government?
Yes. But what passes between the Vice President and the Prime Minister, in the nature of things, must remain in the domain of privileged conversations.
Understandably, but the important point is that as Vice President, you felt a need, perhaps a moral need, to raise this issue with the Prime Minister, and you did do so.
With the ministers also, with the Prime Minister also.
I won't ask you about their response, but were you satisfied?
Well, there is always an explanation, there's always a reason. Now, it's a matter of judgment, whether you accept the explanation, you accept the reasoning and its rationale.
Once again, that's a very important answer, and the wise will certainly be able to understand what you're saying. Let me put it like this. Something else has also happened. In the last few months, the Supreme Court has ruled that Jana Gana Mana must be played before every single film screening. In more recent times, the Madras High Court has ruled that Vande Mataram must be sung at least once a week in Tamil Nadu schools and colleges, at least once a month in government offices and private establishments. And once again, these two rulings have divided public opinion. How do you view them? Do you see this as an example of judicial overreach? Or is it essential for us to pay this exaggerated obeisance to the national anthem and the national song because our nationalism requires it?
The courts are part of society. So what the courts tend to say sometimes is reflective of what the prevailing atmosphere in society is. I call that a sense of insecurity.
A sense of insecurity reflected by the judges in what should be a considered opinion?
Not of the judges, no. I'm talking about the public sense. I mean, this propensity to be able to assert your nationalism day in and day out is unnecessary. I am an Indian, that's it.
And it should be taken for granted that every Indian is loyal to the country. You don't have to prove it.
Oh, absolutely.
In which case, when the judges require this through their rulings, they are reflecting something that they should hopefully have risen above rather than become creatures of.
Well, again, it's accepted practice not to comment on judges, and I shall not.
I understand. Let me then come to a speech that you made on Sunday in Bangalore, because I think it's one of the most important speeches made by a vice president while still in office. I'm going to quote from that speech. You said, "The version of nationalism that places cultural commitments at its core is usually perceived as the most conservative and illiberal form of nationalism. It promotes intolerance and arrogant patriotism." To me, and to many others like me, there was the distinct feeling that you were actually commenting on what's happening today.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes, yes.
So you were talking with specific reference to the mood of the country in 2017.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you give the audience a sense of why you felt this was an important thing for you to say? Because vice presidents don't normally speak out in this way. Why did you deliberately choose to do so?
No, vice presidents do speak out, and I have in the past 10 years spoken out again and again on matters that I think needed to be aired in public. So it was not unusual, at least not for me, to speak about certain issues which I think needed to be discussed. There is to each individual a manner of speaking. I stuck to my manner of speaking.
And you deliberately chose a moment to point out that this exaggerated concept of nationalism, this necessary requirement to have to keep proving you're patriotic and nationalist, is unhealthy. It makes for intolerance and arrogance. That is a point you felt a personal need to make.
Yes, and I'm not the only one in the country. A great many people feel the same way.